Welcome to What's Actually Happening, the podcast where we explore the strange, brilliant, but mildly concerning experience of being a human. Your nervous system, your patterns, your contradictions, your rogue survival strategist that somehow became your entire personality. I'm Elizabeth, part observer, part internal correspondent, and part how did we all become like this? And every episode, we're diving into the subconscious patterns and behaviors overtaking your life while also finding the loopholes around them. Come explore the human operating system with me. Let's get into it. Have you ever looked back at the end of the day and thought, who was that person? What just happened? Maybe you had a day where you handled a difficult conversation at work, you answered a million different emails, and then had to deal with something like a flat tire, only to come home and find yourself irrationally irritated because someone loaded the dishwasher wrong. And either you snap and rage at everyone, or maybe you huff out of the room and slam a door. If you are wondering, how did I go from handling all of that to be irritated by a dishwasher? Either humans are wildly inconsistent, or we are missing part of the operating system. Sure, you could argue that your personality just suddenly changed, or you just lost your patience because, well, people can be relatively annoying. Or maybe all those books on emotional intelligence, resilience, and communication suddenly just stopped working overnight. But let me ask you this. If your personality changed every time your circumstances changed, we'd be reinventing ourselves dozens, if not hundreds of times a day. And to be fair, that is not how reality works. Life is not a snapshot on the internet. No, it is a moving system. So if your personality did not change, what did? You entered a different state. And in today's episode, we're going to explore why you can seem like two different people at the snap of your fingers. State is basically the temporary condition of your mind and body at any given moment. Unlike your eye color, it isn't fixed. It changes, sometimes gradually, and other times in seconds. Feels like whiplash. Throughout a single day, you might move through dozens of different states without even noticing. Picture this. You wake up in a surprisingly good mood. You meander to the kitchen to get your liquid gold, also known as your coffee. Today, even the dog has decided to cooperate. Thank heavens for small victories. So, you pull out your phone, you check your email. And the first email is from your team asking for details that they could have figured out themselves. Cue the eye roll because now you're annoyed. You hit a red light on the way to the office and then get stuck behind someone driving the speed limit, which at this point, it feels like a personal attack. I mean, how could they be so rude? By lunch, you're over it. You're now laughing with your coworker of the said details the team was asking for. Late afternoon, you are now moving through brain fog, half asleep staring at a spreadsheet. After dinner, and a walk maybe, you're wondering whether you had an out-of-body experience because you can't quite remember why everything felt so irritating 8 hours earlier. State feels like endless possibilities, which I am not about to rifle off like a bullet point list on a podcast. But some examples include curiosity, confidence, defensiveness, annoyance, grief, motivation, or even feeling completely relaxed. Every one of those states changes the way that we experience the world. If you think about it, the meeting, the conversation, or the person in front of you did not necessarily change, unless you are a shapeshifter, and then I do have some questions. Allow me to donate myself for another example. I do find that stories And real life experience and examples tend to help us remember easier. So I had been writing all day, actually probably all week. I am writing the upcoming human operating manual. It is a beast of a project that I really would like to get right. So I was mentally fried. I went for a walk by the lake because I thought fresh air will fix this. Usually it does. And it did help until I came across four people walking side by side, taking up the entire path at a very leisurely pace. My first thought was not exactly charitable. I am a woman that walks like a speed walker on a mission. I'm also someone who is very big on situational awareness and respect, so my brain immediately went, "Are you fucking kidding me? How are people this oblivious? How can you be so rude?" Now, did I say that to them? Absolutely not. We don't need to say all of our inside voices on the outside. So I was a mature adult. Here's what is interesting. The walkers weren't the whole story. They didn't wake up and say, "You know what? I think today we should all converge and really irritate this person we have never met in our life and have no idea what their name is or what they're going through. So let's take up the entire path." No, they didn't know that. They were just oblivious to their surroundings, having a great time. I was already irritated, and that was part of the problem. They just happened to be the thing that my state landed on, and something that was external to me. If I had walked the exact same path after a great night's sleep with plenty of capacity and even just a smidgen less of mental load, I probably would have just walked around them and forgotten about them 30 seconds later. Now, here's why this matters. If you don't understand state, you'll often create permanent explanations from temporary conditions. You might think something like, "I'm so impatient. I'm terrible under stress. I'm an angry person." Or you'll project and be like, "Those people are idiots." Not always the healthiest response. But what you're actually experiencing may simply just be a temporary operating condition. Understanding state does not excuse our behavior. Okay, we're all adults here. But it does help us explain why the same person can respond so differently depending on the condition of their operating system. And that is an important distinction, because if we mistake every temporary state for a permanent identity, we end up trying to fix the wrong thing. Understanding state explains why you can feel like a completely different person from one moment to the next. That part makes sense now. But it also creates another problem, because unfortunately, life is rarely made up of isolated incidents. So if state is constantly changing, why do some days you move through those changes without much issue, while on the other days it feels like one thing is going to send you over the edge? A red light can feel like a great excuse to finish up your favorite song one day, and a catastrophic inconvenience the next. Your partner asking what's for dinner might be met with, "I don't know, what are you thinking?" on a Tuesday, and an internal monologue questioning why you're apparently the only person capable of feeding this household by Thursday. So what changed? It wasn't the red light, wasn't your partner, wasn't even the question, which means there has to be something else influencing how much your brain and body can actually handle in the moment. And that something is called your window of tolerance. And that's where we're headed next, because understanding your state tells you what condition your system is in. Understanding your window of tolerance helps explain why that condition can feel completely manageable one day and overwhelming the next. And that is what we are unpacking on the next episode. And if you've been enjoying the series of this podcast, these ideas are part of a much larger framework that I'll be exploring in my upcoming book, The Human Operating Manual, where we connect all of these ideas and these pieces into a practical system for understanding yourself and people around you. One that actually functions with reality and not just paper. It's wonderful. I'll see you on the next one. And that's the wrap of this week's deep dive into the strange experience of being a human. Remember, patterns are not permanent. Survival strategies are not personality traits, and awareness can change things, but integration is the non-negotiable. I'll see you next week for another explanation into what is actually happening beneath the surface. And until then, stay curious, not victim-y.